most people are very conservative with how they spend their finances.
People need to understand that estate planning is very important. It has to be set up properly.
If you would have told me this at the start of my career that I would have two offices in two different states, I would have been like, in 11 years, I'm going to do that? No way.
It's a good feeling, isn't it?
Oh, it was wonderful. I'm just going to soak in this for a little bit.
Welcome back to From Underdog to Entrepreneur Building Dreams. I'm your host, Pat Miller, also the owner of Blue Diamond Construction here in New Jersey. Every week, I like to bring on successful entrepreneurs to tell their stories, share some advice, and to give anybody a nudge who's thinking about becoming an entrepreneur, or if they're interested in the industry that they're actually working in. So today, I'm happy to have a man that's very accomplished. His name is Blake Johnson. Blake is a nationally recognized estate planning attorney and managing partner of Trusted Estate Planning Attorneys. He is the creator of Your Family Bank Method, a legacy focused framework that helps families build generational wealth with intention, structure, and sustainability, something we all need. Very valuable, Blake. He is also the host of the Trusted Podcast. I'd like to welcome Blake today. Thanks for coming by.
Thanks for having me, Pat.
Yeah, sure. No worries. I like the field that you're in. And we were talking before we got on. It's something that I've been dabbling in. As you get older, you start thinking about legacy and doing things the right way without getting caught up in, legal snafus, as they say.
Yep.
So I want to talk to you about your history. So, where you came from, how you got into the industry. I read a little bit that you've worked alongside your dad. Tell us your story.
Yeah. So, my dad is also an estate planning attorney. And so I grew up around that. He went on his own when I was, probably 10 or 11. And he's also a CPA. And so I got
Okay.
to see kind of how those two worlds collided. And because of that, we talked a little bit about business growing up, and it always made me more interested in kind of doing that. I liked the flexibility of him being on his own schedule, on his own terms, that kind of stuff.
Right.
So that's kind of what was appealing to me. Of what I think at some point I'm gonna be my own business owner. I want to have that flexibility, and it turned
Right.
out to be sooner than I thought. I Every job that I had in college was sales related because I knew that I controlled the outcome and I could control my income, and then if you're closing deals, then no one cares if you're in the office or not, and you don't have set hours. So that was my first experience with entrepreneurship, was in sales type roles.
Okay.
And then from there, decided, well, I was studying investment banking and finance in undergrad. And then I met my wife, and knew that that lifestyle definitely was not going to appeal to her.
Mhm.
And it didn't really, I mean, I wanted to do it because I knew, oh, if I put my head down for a few years, then I can kind of go off and do something else in private equity or be a CEO or something like that. But I pivoted and said, you know what, let's go to law school and follow in dad's footsteps, because I really like that field. It's still finance adjacent, and
It is.
I can
Yep.
use a lot of the things I learned, and a lot more laid back. Most people think about law as not being laid back, but compared to investment banking, it was going to be
Oh yeah.
a big difference.
Yeah, that's high pressure, man. That makes you crazy, right?
Yep. And so that's why I went to law school, came back, or when I graduated, I was driving home to my parents' house. I went to law school in Louisiana at LSU. And by the time it took me
Right.
to drive from there to Utah, where my parents lived, both my offers were withdrawn. And so I was without a job and
Oh
trying to
boy.
figure out what to do. We were staying with my parents for a while, and it took me 3 months to convince my dad to hire me, because he never wanted to have employees other than an assistant. And so he's like, all right, you got 6 months, go down to Vegas. I have an office down there, but I haven't really done anything with it in years. And see if you can become, you have 6 months to become profitable. So I went down there, I knew how to sell, and that's how we got started. Then we were partners for a bit, and I eventually bought him out of our Las Vegas office a couple or 6 years ago now.
Nice. That's a great story. So he gave you the opportunity and you took it and ran with it. You knew you had nothing going on, right? So you better take it and run. And that's a
Yeah,
good
and it worked
story.
out great because I knew I didn't wanna just be stuck in a cubicle and never meet with clients
Mhm.
and be billing hours all the time. So, he was still in Southern Utah while I was there, so I it was essentially mine to do what I wanted to. So I was the one
That's
that went out and
awesome.
got business. I'm the one who met with the clients. I was the one who did all those things. So it got me a taste while being an employee of what that was like, and I really enjoyed it. And that's one of the big decision why I didn't try and go get a job elsewhere.
Right. So you still built that book of business. He didn't hand it to you, right?
Oh yeah, and I had to buy him out. I had to pay for
Yeah.
what I built it, and that's a big part of what I am really into is with families and that have wealth and are successful. We don't want them to just hand off everything.
Nope.
I'm a big proponent of making your kids earn it, and let them buy the business from you, let them actually use a family loan. That's what the family bank is using a loan from your family to buy whatever it needs to be done. Don't just gift them everything.
I agree with that. And that's how I raised my sons, exactly like that, you know? I told them if you're given a house, you don't appreciate it as much if you work hard and put your money away. Once you get the house, I'll help you. I'm in construction. Need a roof, need this. I'll help you out. But I believe in that 1,000%. You cannot just give stuff. And people need to understand that as they become, older and more successful in their careers, that it has to, estate planning is very, very important. It has to be set up properly so it doesn't become destructive, right?
Yes, it absolutely does. And that's, after 11 years of practice and being second generation and seeing what worked and what didn't with my dad's clients, that's the more I'm advocating for, yes, you can do some distributions, but you're better off structuring it so your kids have to learn financial responsibility, so they have to work and build their own stuff, and have some struggle. We talk about it a lot in our firm and with our clients is manufacturing struggle, because your kids, for the most part, if you're well off, are not going to know struggle because of where they grew up. So you have to give them
Right.
opportunities to create that so they understand those things. And so that's where with the family bank concept in estate planning comes in, and that's where our kind of predecessor to that is called the entitlement elimination program. That's for younger parents that maybe aren't as successful, but they want to start instilling some of those things.
No, that's great. I think that's something that we haven't emphasized on over the last 50 years. I think financial responsibility is really important and they should really start teaching it a little bit more in school, in my opinion. You know, they don't even teach kids how to balance a checkbook, but they don't even do that anymore. So they just spend, right? And find out when there's nothing left.
Right. And the reality is, I don't think we're going to see that change within our school systems. Now we can
No,
advocate for it and all that. And
no,
so we have to take that initiative as parents to make sure that we do teach that to our kids.
I agree. I agree. And the younger, my kids are grown now. So the younger parents now, they got their hands full. They got a lot of stuff going on in the world. There's so much at your fingertips and, being organized and having a planning. I think somebody in your industry is undervalued by the younger generation. They should be involved with you a little bit more early on. But it's just a cycle, right? We all go through it. You don't think about it until you need it. But so basically you're teaching your clients to prevent their will reading like a bad contract.
Yeah, there's a couple of things in there that
Yeah,
we
I
need to
read
talk
that. I was like,
about.
"Oh, that's really good."
Yeah. So it's yeah, we want to have the estate plan match what you would do if you were still here. So if you're still living, are you going to give your kid a $500,000 outright?
Right.
Now, maybe if
Scary.
they're really responsible, they've proven themselves in business, they have all these things, check the boxes, then yes, maybe. But the reality is, for most people, it's not going to be that case. So why would you do that upon your death and just give that to them and create this financial burden in the sense of My mom called it the burden of money. When we were newlyweds, each of myself and my siblings, she gave us a gold coin and said, "I want you to know the burden of money, and so you got to make the decision of what to do with this." And I
Wow.
was a really important lesson to me, and I
Yeah.
think we forget that with our estate plan. Like, well, I'm dead; it doesn't matter. Well, yes, it does. What's important to you while you're living should matter when you pass away. Why should that change just because you're gone? Your values should still carry on.
Right. And I agree with that. And I applaud your mom for saying that. That's a good lesson she taught you guys. You have to know the value. And I started thinking about it and I'm like, I've been working really hard. I'm a widow. I had to rebuild my life, blah, blah, blah. I tell my story all the time. But you work hard and you want to make sure that they spend your money wisely, right? Not haphazardly, and nobody takes it from them or nobody, you know what I'm talking about. You got to protect it, and it should be protected out of respect too, because your parents worked hard for it. So,
Well, and here's the other thing that most people don't know. Unless they're really, really, really successful, most people are very conservative with how they spend their finances. And that's one of the things, the frugality is what made them successful in the first place. But my favorite quote in estate planning is you should fly first class, otherwise your kids definitely will. And so, like, take the chance, if your financial advisor they lets you know, hey, you have enough that you can do these things, go on those trips. Now, if you want to take your kids with you, great, take them with you, and that can be your gift, experience all that. But
right.
don't, fly basic economy or never take that trip because you're worried about leaving them something. No, why? You should spend your money and do that, and I promise your kids will be experience it a lot better if
Yeah.
you go on the trip with them as opposed to them just going and having a ton of fun because now they inherited all this money and they're going to blow it.
Yeah, I mean, look, everybody should enjoy their money, but we all have the same mindset too. That we're all guilty of wanting to have our children have a better life than we did, right? So we want to leave them something, but you also have to enjoy your hard work. So I agree with that. Fly first class, take that trip, spend your money with your kids. It's about, you know, spending money on, memories and stuff like that. So I agree with that as well. So tell me about your podcast. I was reading, did you take 3 years off of work or your podcast?
Just off the podcast.
Okay.
Yeah,
You were
so
just too busy?
well, in the height of COVID, my assistant, got sick and was out for 3 weeks, and so that was the first thing to go because I was
Oh
doing it
boy.
all myself back then,
A
first
lot.
I just bought
Yep.
out my dad, all this that stuff. So, didn't have the
Okay.
resources to pay someone else to do it, but that's one of the things I've learned as an entrepreneur is, you don't do it all yourself.
No.
There is a huge return for paying people to do their job so you can stay in your lane is what your unique ability is, and that allows you to grow even better. And
And
so
that's
you got to
really good
learn,
advice.
yeah, you
That's
got to learn those things.
Yeah, you do. Because so many people take so long to build their business. And I'm guilty of this. I'm just starting to let go a little bit. And they want to be in control of all the decisions, right? Because you have a little bit of fear. Somebody else might make a mistake, you could lose your business. But I had a business coach on not too long ago, and he said if you don't surround yourself with quality employees, you're nothing more than an employee, right? Because the company can't run without you, right? So he
Yeah,
he
you have a
kind of
job,
hit
you
the
don't have
nail
a business.
right. You don't have a business. Nope. You're just working a job. So, and it's a very fine line, Blake. You know this. It's hard to get to the point where you want to start letting go and trusting. You got to trust. You got to hire the right people. If you hire the right people, you're golden. If you don't, then you're gonna have some regrets, maybe, maybe not. But you have to take a little bit more time. And I say that all the time in my business. I'm like, I do need to hire two more people, but I gotta find the time to get the right person and train them properly so you can kind of step away from those roles. So that's really good advice because a company doesn't run just by the owner. It's just too much. You can only do so much in one day, right?
Well, and the
So
thing is, we as business owners and entrepreneurs, we think we're really important because we're the ones taking the risk and doing all these things. But what I've come to find out is I'm not as important as I think I am,
Right.
which is a good thing. My role is to be the CEO of my law firm, and so I am to be the one who goes out and gets good networking done, finds relationships. I define the vision of the firm. I do make the big picture decisions. Here's the types of law we're going to do. Here's the things we're going to focus on. Maybe some pricing setting. Outside of that, though, the day to day stuff is run by other people. I have other attorneys who do the drafting. I have paralegals to help with the client
That's great.
onboarding and those things. And once I realized that I'm not that important for those roles, like they can do those jobs, and most of the time they do them better than I would anyways.
Good.
It
That's
freed me
good.
up to grow so much faster because I wasn't the bottleneck anymore. And so, I have a goal.
Yeah.
I have another kid coming in April. It'll be our third boy, and
Oh,
my goal is to
congratulations.
take off a full month. My first two kids, one I had in law school, and one I had, um, you know, 2 years, a year into practice. So there's a big gap, but at those times, I took off about a day and a half for each kid, and that's it.
Yeah,
And so, this time I want to take a full month off and not touch anything work related. I might have a check in here or there, but the idea is to step back. And that's my test of whether I've set up the firm properly so it can run without me. Because that's the true test of whether you have a business or not. If
that's
you can
right.
step away for a period of time and it continue and actually grow while you're gone, that's when you've set it up for success.
That's true success. I say that all the time, Blake. If you could make money by not working, whether you're out fishing, golfing with your baby on a beach, then you're successful. End of story. It's running, it's generating income, and that's true success. And I also believe that you should always set your business up so you can sell it someday. It should be an asset, right?
Yeah,
So
and that's one of the reasons my dad and I parted ways. Is I went I'd hired a business coach, and he wasn't happy about that. This is while we were partners, and he's like, "Why are you spending money on this?" I'm like, "Well, because I want to grow." And his exact response was, "Well, why would you want to do that?" And I'm like, "What do you mean? Like, I don't understand your question." And he's like, "Well, you have employees and that'll cause more headaches and do all this stuff." I'm like, "Yeah, but I just got back from vacation. It's taken me 2 weeks to get back to starting making money again. I want to
right,
be able to go on vacation and still make money. If my employees go on vacation, they still get paid while they're gone for paid time off, but that doesn't happen for me yet at that point. It does now." And so that was the big thing of like, I think we have different visions of what we want. And so, that's when we parted ways. So,
that
you
was
gotta
the
find that.
right, that was the clear vision, right?
Yep.
So do you think that's a generational thing? Because a lot of people think I'm crazy too. Like, why do you spend money on marketing? Why do you go to networking events? People just don't seem to understand that.
I don't
Um,
know that it's generational. I think it's more of just, where you're at and where you're comfortable with. So for
okay,
him, he saw employees as a headache as opposed to I see them as my assets that allow me to do a whole lot more. So yes, there's some complications that come in with that. You got to train them. You're going to have turnover. You're going to have those things. But to me, that work is by far offset by the value that they create for me as well. So I think it's more of, your identity and what you see, how you see the world and see those things.
right. I think it has to do with, having long-term vision too, right? You know where you want to go, where you want to be. Um, I see your point. It just depends on how you approach entrepreneurship. Some people see things as a problem, other people see them as a positive. It's positive and negative. It's what you do with it, right?
Yeah, and
I
what is your long-term goal? Like for him, he makes enough, for what he does with his practice that he doesn't need to grow or do anything, and he's fine because he's met all his goals of what he wants, and that's fine. That's great. It was conflicting with what I wanted, and so that's why we amicably decided, "Hey, I'm going to buy you out." He actually is the one who suggested he said, "Why don't you just buy me out so you can do your thing and then it doesn't harm our relationship." And so it
That's
was,
really
you know,
smart.
yeah, it was really great for him to see that ahead of time. And so that's why it worked that way. My goals are different. I'm quite a bit more ambitious. I want to
Right.
build something to exit. I want to, make a little bit bigger impact in the world. And so, that's why it aligns with me. For him, it didn't, and that's okay. You got to find, what works for you. For most people, I don't know that entrepreneurship is the right path because it's
No.
different, it's risky, and all those things. Now, if you are willing to do that, the payoff is immense, and I highly recommend it. But don't get into it just thinking, oh, I can make more money and do all this stuff. That's not the reason.
Yeah.
It's a
That's
lifestyle, and it's a different. You have to have the right mindset for it.
You gotta have the right mindset. It's not for the faint of heart, and a lot of the younger kids, they think it's just you're off all the time. You could sleep late, right? And you know as well as I know, you work harder when it's yours.
Yeah, especially in the beginning. I remember so many times where I'd go home, have dinner with my family, come back, work till 10 o'clock, go home, sleep, get up at 4, come back,
Good for
do
you.
it all again. And part of that was because I was too afraid to hire someone, but is also that was the time. And now I'm have struggling. My biggest struggle is with the identity shift from I have to be grinding all the time to be successful to that's not the role now. My role is I'm better off out of the office doing stuff, meeting with people and doing that. And so, you grow and you have different struggles as you go through different stages of
That's
growth.
right. That's right. And I talk about that with a lot of entrepreneurs actually. Um it's I don't know. We always feel well, this is the name of my podcast, right? Underdogs. So you started out as an underdog. You did. You bought your dad's Vegas farm. You were building it. You had a lot to do. You were an underdog. You're starting out with a blank slate, building a book of business. So we kind of identify that we always have to have something to prove or something to do. And like if we don't do it, it's not going to survive, like you said. But I think it's more like trying to prove it to ourselves anymore. It's like you're always grinding. I just think you get in that survival mode. And like you said, now you want to take some time off with your baby. You don't have to be in survival mode anymore. You have a nice group of people that work for you, right? So it is, there's I don't know, as you grow, different parts of your career, it just changes, and you have to be able to pivot into the changes and the roles, and I say that all the time. I'm not on site anymore in my industry as much. I lay out my buildings, but I kind of let go of that. I used to be there all the time because it's my job, like it's your job to get more work, right? I network with developers and I talk to, different engineers and architects and that's my job. So it's just a different role. Years ago, like you said, when you start out, you have a different role where you're really the whole business. You're starting it, you're running it, and you're growing it. And it burns you out, right? A little bit.
Yeah, it does, and that's why you've got to take a step back
Yep,
and hire the other people. The
that's
thing I'd
right.
also say is, just because I can take off a month doesn't mean I'm going to sit around and do nothing for the rest of my career because I can.
No.
You have to be engaged, and that's not our personality. I think
No.
that it's actually going to be harder on me to be
Yeah.
off for a month than it will be for my team because they're going to know what to do. They're going to get stuff done. I'm going to go crazy. Like, what am I going to spend my time working on and making sure I'm utilizing
Do
that
you think
time?
you're gonna do it? Do you
I,
think you're not gonna
I'm a little nervous. I think 2 weeks, piece of cake. After that, I don't know.
you're gonna wanna start reaching out?
Yep. It's just more of like, cause I want to
What
be
about this
involved. I want
client?
to get
What about this
something
client?
done. And so, yeah, I'm gonna create a list of things that I want to work on either around the house or books I want to read and other stuff. So I have stuff to do. But the
And you're
thing
gonna
is,
have a baby, right? Come
yeah,
on.
and I'll have time with the baby and all of those things. But it really is, you know, you look at Elon Musk, for example, he does not have to work ever again. But the guy works harder than anybody else because he is driven by a higher purpose. He wants to get people colonized on Mars. That's his goal. And
Right.
so it doesn't matter about the money. That's just happens to come in, but he is still working, probably 90 hours a week.
He
Now, I
has a
don't
different
want to do
goal.
that
Right.
personally, but I do have my purpose of educating families, eliminating entitlement. And so my role will change to help be the speaker and the voice for that. and that will keep me going and interested well after my firm is self-sustaining.
Yeah, I think what you're doing is great. And like I said, it's been ignored for I know my parents never thought about it. So, you know, it's something that needs to be addressed sooner than later. But you're gonna have a baby. My son just had a baby, by the way. And he took the Family Leave Act and he said if he would had to do it all over again, he would do it in a minute. Because he said that was the best, the beginning. He goes back to work next month. He took 3 months off, actually. In New Jersey, you get 3 months. And he said it's the best thing that he ever did. So I don't
Well,
think you'll
it's a lot
regret
easier
it.
to do that when somebody else is paying that bill.
Well, but he still took a big pay cut because you
Oh,
only
yeah.
get so much in New Jersey. It's family leave. So, he's only getting probably, I don't know, a third of what he got, but he saved his money so he could spend the time to bond with the baby. And
Yep.
he said it's been awesome, watching her grow and stuff like that. So I think you're doing the right thing. I think you're gonna probably want to reach out a little bit in week 3. You're gonna be like, what's going on with that client? What's going on with this account? But
Yep,
it's
and
great.
and the team's already been told there's to tell me, "None of your business. I can't talk
Oh,
to you."
that's great. That's good stuff, so they know.
Yep.
So, um, you've built a few businesses, though. I was reading your bio. Did you owned another business, or is that all the sales stuff?
No, I've had a couple of other businesses. One of them was a, inflatable bubble ball rental business.
Okay.
So the ones where you run around and play bubble
Yeah.
soccer, we rented those out. So,
Okay. So you
um
built that and sold it?
I did. Yep. It was an interesting experience going through that. I ended up getting audited by the state of Nevada for
Oh,
sales tax stuff because they disagreed with how I classified how I purchased the bubbles. But all learning
that
experiences to
taught
help
you. Yeah.
that help me with my clients because I have a lot of clients that are getting ready to sell or they come to me as they're in that process. So I can understand their pains, what they're going through, and making sure like they're aware of like, hey, here's how it impacts your estate plan.
Blake, I talk about that all the time. I even wrote about it in my book. Everything you experience is is learning. It's a learning lesson, you positive and negative. And you have to recognize it. Like you had a pretty shitty situation with the state, right? But you learn from it. And now you use it to help your own clients, right?
Yep.
So it's turning a positive out of a negative. So I say it all the time. We're all products of our own experiences. It's how we react to them determines, right? Whether you're a victim or you use it and move on, and use
Exactly.
it for, yeah, you use it for um, learning lesson. I like to turn adversity into power and then pivot, right? You got to learn that in entrepreneurship. Things are not going to be rosy all the time, right? Something happens, you got to know how to pivot and you got to know how to get back up and keep going and turn it around. So, um, fighter instinct, no? You fight? You're a fighter?
Oh yeah. I had one of those experiences this morning. We had a marketing group that we were working with, and they were producing results, but it was in a way that went against what our firm values are. And
Oh,
so I had to have the tough conversation with them like, hey, look, I know you're bringing us this many leads, but I'm ending the contract because I just can't get on board with how this is being handled. And I've addressed this a few times and it's not happening. And so, we cut ties. I'm going to lose a significant amount of money on that because I paid them up front and it's it was non-refundable but it wasn't worth it to me for what our firm values were. And so what is that? I told the team this morning, like, hey, we didn't, this is that we paid for a learning experience. We learned a lot
right.
about how to get it leads, what we don't like, what we do, and we can go and implement some of these things that they were doing for us on our own internally. And now we can make sure that the process is done the right way.
Look, uh, it's part of business, right? I just had a similar experience. I was working for a GC and I didn't like him as a person, right? I'm blessed that I was able to call my attorney and say, find the hole. What do you want me to do? I said, I am not working for this guy. I said, he talks to me like garbage. He's disrespectful. He yells. He hangs up. I said, I've worked 32 years in this industry. I'm well respected and nobody talks to me that way. I said, get him to exercise his, he's going to get rid of me out of convenience, right? He's going to terminate at convenience. I lost some money like you, but I'm not going to compromise my values and my integrity. And that's pretty much what you are doing right now. You're going to lose some money, but you have to know where your breaking point is. And I talk about that with a lot of young entrepreneurs. You need to set your values on what you're willing to do, right? And what you're not willing to do, because that's more important sometimes. You know, compromising your values of your company and your integrity as a person takes years to build a reputation, but a reputation can be ruined real fast,
Yeah.
right? So it's very important that they think about all these things. You just don't say, oh, I'm going to run a business, I'm going to start a business, and I'm going to go. Because you have to be prepared to be successful, correct?
Oh yeah.
You have to be prepared. So,
Well, and you got to lay out
but
those values ahead of time so that way in the
yeah,
moment it's not a question.
exactly. And I believe I'm a firm believer in authenticity too. Stay true to yourself. People like authenticity. They like to know who they're dealing with. And I'm very upfront, stay authentic and you'll see your business grow and keep your values intact. And I applaud you for that. Money wasn't an issue. It was the values because it was gonna do harm to your business. It's not good. So
Yeah. Yeah. I want to be able to sleep well at night, not have to worry about it.
yeah, yeah. I was telling a story the other day. I have a client of mine. He just bought another business. He bought a steel company, and he's like, I came in there, and there's like romper room, right? Everybody's doing their own side work, right? And they're like, oh, you can't fire Jim. And he's like, yeah, I can fire Jim. And they were like, he's the best guy we have. And he goes, that may be so, but he sucks as a person. He's mean, he's nasty, and he doesn't hold the values that I have for my company. And I don't want him to be working for me. And I'm going to lose a ton of money because he had a contract. He goes, but I'll make that money back. I want to run my company with good people with good values. So again, sometimes you make decisions and you lose money, but you gain more value in the end, right?
Yep, exactly.
Yep. So, did you write a book or no?
Um, yeah, early on in my career, I wrote a book called You Can't Take It With You. It's the top 15 estate planning questions answered in plain English. So it's built specifically for Utah and Nevada residents because it's very, state specific estate planning law questions. But it's just to show, hey, this is how the process works. Here's what I hear all the time. Here's the answers you're looking for, so you know whether you need to get an attorney involved or not.
That's good. You should write it for every state.
I don't want to learn. I don't want to go get licensed for every state and have that liability.
It's something that people can use, trust me.
Oh yeah.
Because a lot of people don't want to they don't want to poke at the bee's nest, right? You hear attorney, they get nervous.
Yeah,
But
so
like that,
most states are very similar. They either follow Nevada or Utah, and so it applies to almost everybody. They'll get something out of it, but I just have to put that disclosure. I'm only
right,
licensed in those states, so those are the ones that it was
right.
written for.
That's what you're gearing towards. So, did, I got to ask you this because you've had such a journey. Was there a moment sitting in your office where it defined and you said, "Ah, I actually did it."
I had one of those moments probably about a week and a half ago. So we just moved into a new office building that I built with
Good
a
for
partner,
you.
and so I was walking out. I took out the trash, from the boxes we were of furniture putting together, and I was walking back in, and I just looked at the building, and it was one of those like, holy cow! Like I've made it. I cannot believe I'm here at this point. So it was pretty cool to see that, like just the building being done. It was
Yeah,
a 3-year project. took 2 years to get permits, a whole nightmare, but it was
Oh, I
done.
know.
And it just was one of those, like, I'm so grateful we're here. And I can't believe that I'm here. If you would have told me this at the start of my career, that I would have two offices in two different states, and own my suite in Vegas, own my building here in Utah, with on top of that, I would have been like, in 11 years I'm going to do that, no way.
Oh,
But
you did
here
well,
I
kiddo.
am.
That's pretty good. That's some that's some accomplishment. But you had an aha moment, right? You turn around and you're like, "That's right, I did it."
Yeah.
Right? It's a good feeling, isn't it?
Oh, it was wonderful. It's just one of those, sit out there. Ah, I'm just gonna soak in this for a little bit, enjoy it
And you
before I go
should.
back to work.
No, and you should, because gratitude is so important. Without gratitude, I'm a big believer of the laws of the universe. You've got to have gratitude, and you got to be grateful for everything that you have. And,
Yep.
you're willing to work hard for it. And that's a good thing. That's a nice feeling.
Oh, it is
So,
for sure. I start every day writing down things I'm grateful for.
do you? I do that too. That's great. Yeah, I have my coffee and I put it in my notes on my phone. I'm like, we should be grateful for more. I think people don't realize, you know, everybody, it could always be worse, right, Blake? So,
Yeah, well, and if you ever are feeling, you have a bad relationship, or things are kind of going the wrong way, like at one point, not that my wife and I had a bad relationship, but I could just tell things were off. We weren't on the same page. I started writing every day. I would write down something different I was grateful for, about her. And that completely changed our relationship. And it's never been better because of that. When you
that's
actually look for the good,
that's
you
right.
find it.
Ah, that is great advice. Anybody listening, stay with the positive, because it's so easy to dwell on the negative, and when you dwell on negative energy, you bring more to you. So, you did the right thing. You dwelled on the positive, and the positive things outweigh the negative. And nobody's perfect, right, Blake?
Yeah. Well, and it gets really hard to to not repeat stuff. But I still do it. Like, still to this day. It's probably been 3 years now, of doing that. I've missed a few days here or there, but like, that has been the biggest impact in my wife and I's relationship, is me realizing all the great things about her.
Oh, she's the mother of your children. I'm sure that goes up top.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So what's one piece of advice for anybody out there listening? Um, it's us underdogs have the same story, right? You got to work.
Yeah, you do have to work, but I think the thing that sometimes get lost in that is that you have to sacrifice your family in order to be successful, and I don't believe that at all. If you make it your priority, you can have both. You can have it all. It's just, how do you fit it in? So for me, early on, like I said, I always went home for family dinners. That was
That's
a
good.
non-negotiable for me, because I wanted to be there. I'd put my kids to bed, and then I would go back to work. So they were still part of it. I would make sure that on the important days, okay, I wouldn't schedule client meetings so that I could be there for those things. And so, yes, you need to work, especially in the beginning. You're going to have to grind to get things off the ground.
Yeah.
Make sure
Yep.
it's not at the risk of your family or the things that are most important to you.
I think you did the right thing. You have to put your priorities in order. You can't forget where you came from. Your family should be everything. I always tell my guys that work for me too. Don't ever be ashamed to ask me for a day off if you need to do something for your kids, because your kids are only kids for a short period of time. And before you know it, they're going to be full grown adults. So they emulate I always say all the time, children learn what they live. So if they live with love and they live with support, they're going to grow up to be well balanced, well rounded adults. So I believe that. Not everybody you know, has that luxury, whatever their circumstances are. But I think you're doing the right thing. You take the time for the family, family first. It's a saying for a reason. But you must use a lot of organization hacks, no? What's your favorite? You're a calendar guy, right?
Yeah, I mean, I do have a calendar. I think the
Yeah.
biggest thing is, I don't schedule my own appointments. I'm not allowed to anymore because I mess it up. And so I have Wednesdays, we're recording this on a Wednesday.
Yep.
Other than recording podcasts, I don't do any client appointments on Wednesdays.
Okay. I
And
don't either.
so
I don't do anything on
that's
Wednesdays.
my time to get caught up or, do my things. This morning I had to go do some shopping and other stuff. So like the biggest thing I think is, calendaring the like things like it, but then sticking to that. When it's time to, just because I could take client appointments and make more money doing that, no, I need the time to relax or to get caught up and do those things. So it's sticking to your calendar. And the easiest way is I can't schedule anything on there, neither can anyone else. So, if someone
That's
wants an
good.
appointment, they call my assistant and she's the one who puts it on the calendar and she knows it'll never go on a Wednesday or a Friday.
Yeah, I like that too. Wednesdays, it's kind of like, I don't know, I call it manic Mondays, right? Mondays are crazy in construction anyway. And I always take Wednesday. It's like you get the middle of the week, you gotta take a breath, right? I gotta I gotta catch up from all the stuff that I didn't get done Monday and Tuesday. But
Yep.
I'm the same way. I don't usually schedule anything for Wednesdays. I do my podcasts. I'm on guests as you know. But where can they buy your book? Where can they find you? Where's all your socials? How could people reach out to you? Is
So I'm on Instagram and LinkedIn. LinkedIn's probably the best one. That's the only one I personally post on.
right.
And then my website is trustedepa.com for the law firm. Or if they're interested in the family bank and the entitlement elimination program, that's your FB as in yourfamilybank.com. Um,
So, do
but
you only take clients in your home states, or do you have work with other attorneys in other states? Can people
So if it's
utilize?
basic estate planning, we just do it in the 3 states that we're licensed in: Arizona, Utah,
Right.
and Nevada. But with the family bank, because it's an irrevocable trust and, there's a whole lot of details there, we actually have clients all over the country because it's not related directly to where they live, and so we can take
Oh,
clients from anywhere.
okay, good. So that's real good. So you just opened up your whole book of business there.
Yep.
It's not. That's really good stuff.
And then
How's it going?
we
How's your
partner with other attorneys. Like, we're not here to take away the client. We still want the local attorney to help with their estate tax plan and, how the state laws affect those things. This is just a piece of that puzzle, and we help them with that.
That's really good, Blake, because it's important and people can reach out to you and they can get the ball rolling, right?
Yep.
And you don't want to take any business away from the locals. And I'm a big proponent of that. I do a lot of business with my own competitors. I say it all the time. I'd rather sit at the table and eat with others than not eat at all. So, there's plenty of room, plenty of work for everybody. And I think if you respect each other, then it's all going to work out. So that's the way I do business. You get when I first started, Blake, I was like, oh, I can't talk to him. He's my competitor. You get a little stupid because you're trying to grow your business and you want to take every job. But then as you get older, you get experience. You have your own book of business. That's my take on it. You don't mind working with other people. And look, sometimes I'm too busy. I work with my competitors. They do the work and you make 5%. It's better than not making any percent, right?
Yeah, well, and like for me, it's great because I have a handful of guys that if I have a question about a certain case, I can call them up and say, "Hey, here's what I'm going through. What do you think about this scenario? Can you give me advice? Maybe I'll have you co-counsel on it or whatever." And so it's best for the client that way. Most of the time, it's just a quick 20-minute phone call. We walk through it and fine, and then they call me about stuff too. So I'm with
That's
you.
good.
If you have that abundant mindset, there's more than enough work for everybody, and so
That's right.
we're just here to help each other out, making sure that everybody gets taken care of.
Right. So your clients, whether they know it or not, are getting a multitude of different resources,
Yep.
right? So when they utilize you, and I talk about that too, your 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 contacts, I don't know. I think it's every industry, but I'm going to say my experience. Your contacts are one of the most important and valuable assets to your business. You build your business. Takes years to get a clients and a book of business. And I believe you probably build your business the same way as other successful entrepreneurs. You build relationships, right?
Oh yeah, relationships are what make things happen.
Right. You have to build the relationship, and the relationship comes directly from you. They want to do business with you, right? So you build that relationship, and it's very valuable. And there's a lot of people out there that want to get close to certain relationships and they don't know the person and they know you know them. So I always tell the younger kids, listen, in their 20s, just guard your contacts. Your contacts are very valuable. You know, be careful who you're working with. Not everybody's genuine. It's business. It's not always positive, right? There's good and bad in every industry. So, but I appreciate you coming on today. I really like your story here. What's going on? What's next for you? What are you doing next? You writing another book?
No, so the big work goal is to get set up so I can take that month off. So that's really the focus right now.
Yep.
Um,
Take that
and
month
then
off.
personally, I do a lot of races. So I like to do endurance events. So I've got a 50-mile race that's coming
Oh
up
my god.
um, uh, end of March. So just before I take off.
Okay. So you're in shape. You're fit.
Yeah, I
Good for
usually
you.
do at least one ultra a year is what I try to do.
That's a accomplishment in itself. You have to put a lot of time in that. I build a lot of crunch fitnesses. So I see a lot of very dedicated athletes come in there and it's definitely a mindset.
Yeah, I found if I exercise and keep my body intact and in shape, then everything else seems to fall into place.
Right. Right. And you're healthy, so you think clear, you know. Um not much of a drinker anymore. I notice when I have some more wine, it takes a little while for your head to clear, right? You have to cleanse your body with a lot of water. I just think clearer. When I was younger, everything's a party, right? But I just don't partake in that anymore because I think you do have to, you know, you know what they say, right? Blake, garbage in, garbage out.
Yeah,
So
exactly.
that's just my take on it. But you seem to have caught on much younger. So, but I appreciate you stopping by. I mean, it was a great story. I like what you're doing. I'm happy that you accomplished your offices. That's really good stuff. And hopefully some of my audience members will reach out to you. And
Yeah, thank you for having me. Always happy to talk
yeah,
about these things and share what I have with others.
yeah, share what you have. I like it. Like I said, I just started doing this stuff like 5 years ago. I'm a widow, so I kind of experienced what wasn't done. So I kind of know because everybody thinks they have time. And I'll put that on just before I leave. You never know. And everybody thinks they have more time than they do. And I always say on every episode, are you ready? You know, do you have everything prepared? Because I sure didn't. I was just a victim of thinking we have unlimited time. So, you got to have everything prepared. And I had to rebuild my life because of it. My husband had, minimal life insurance. You know, we were just, we were workers, right? We were building the money. And then he got sick, right? So when he got sick, I spent my life savings over $1 million. And then I had got into debt. So when he passed away, and then I got into the cracks of, I'll tell you the story real quick, cracks of life insurance. They found the little tiny caveat. They didn't pay the life insurance. So it was just worse, worse. It just kept getting worse and worse. So I just found myself in a hole and I had to rebuild my life at 52. You know, I had no money. Everybody thinks they have it all figured out, Blake. But,
Yep. You're
you
never too young to start your estate planning
that,
because it
oh
can
my
happen to
God,
anybody.
I can't stress that enough. I really can't. I never thought, like I said, didn't have it on my bingo card to be a widow at 52. You know, everybody thinks, I got another 10 years before I do estate planning. And then it came out of nowhere. My husband had no symptoms and he went to work and started urinating blood. So my life changed in one day.
Yep.
And then at that point, it's too late, right? It's too late to estate plan because now
Yep.
you're fighting health issues and you're spending money and you get into all of these experimental drugs that you got to pay for. And, you know, it was just, it was a good experience for me to know. It was a horrible experience personally, but I learned that when you're pressed against the wall, you're stronger than you realize.
Yep. You are.
Yep. And that's one of my sayings on the backs of my books is you never know how strong you are until being strong is your only option. But your industry is close to my heart because it's something I didn't do. And that was the first thing I did when I rebuilt my business. I paid off all my debt. I put money away for retirement and I went right to my attorney and I did an estate plan instead of trust funds. So I learned. How did I get learned? I got baptized by fire.
Yeah, and that's how most people come to us. It's either they had a great experience with it, or usually it's, hey, I had this really bad experience. I want to
Yep.
make sure my kids don't go through this.
Yep. So anybody listening, it's never too early to start your estate planning because everybody thinks they have more time than they realize. And you know what? At the end of the day, Blake, when it's done, it's peace of mind.
Yep.
It's done, right? You have people that take care of it. You have your attorneys, you have your finance guys, you got your CPA, then you have experience in all of that, it seems. So you have a background. So it makes you very, very well rounded. So, but anyway, I gotta run. I appreciate you stopping by. Stick stick around until when I sign off, make sure everything's uploaded. But I want to sign off now. Thanks for coming. It was nice meeting you. And next week, stay tuned, all my audience. I'm gonna have another super successful entrepreneur on. And until then, if I can do it, so can you. I'm just a girl from Jersey. We'll see you next week.